Hello X. Since this is the place for creepy shit, I thought I would share with you all the story of a house my family moved into at the beginning of the year 2000 and lived until 2006. It's going to be a mixture of stories from me and stories that my youngest sister told to me, so bear with me. I'll be typing all this out, so I will be slow. We first moved into the house at the end of January 2000. It is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with a full-size basement that sits off the road about 600 feet from the road. It is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and if anyone shows interest in it, I will post the address if you want to visit it. It was supposed to be my parents, 3 sisters, me, and my mom's mother and dad, but for about 2 weeks, it was just my parents, sisters, and I. One of the first things we noticed about the place was that the basement door was just 2 loose pieces of plywood chained together, and that the basement had a chalk outline of a person on the wall. The house also had 2 chicken houses, and a fence about 50 foot away in the backyard on the side with the hill. The backyard was split into a field about half the size of a football field with forest at the end and the hill with the chicken houses on it, which was in the woods. The setup of the house was you walk in, the living room was right there. Take a right about 20 steps in, and there is a hallway with the bathroom at the end, 2 bedrooms on the left and 1 on the right. The kitchen was off the living room, with the stairs leading down to the basement and the back door sharing the same walkway. The backyard had a set of stairs so you could get back up from the field, and a lower driveway that led to the basement. Then there was a block building on the right side of the house with a small basement that was caved in. Sorry for the description, but it is necessary. I had the first bedroom on the left. My 3 sisters shared the second one, and my parents had the one on the right-hand side. The living room had a huge plate glass window that looked out on the front yard and the driveway leading up to the woods to a house about 1/4 of a mile in the woods with a farm where the Hells Angels would throw a party every now and then. There was also a creek that ran past the farm and our property. The first night we stayed there, we did not have a cable or anything hooked up or stuff unpacked, so we were all just kind of trying to get used to things. I was 10 at the time, and my sisters were 9, 8, and 6. We were all fairly normal, though we were kinda abused by our father, me most of all. But besides that, we were a fairly normal family. For the first 3 nights, everything was normal, but the 4th night, our dad was gone to pick our mom up from work, and I was in the living room alone. My sisters were with my grandparents for the weekend, so I had free reign to watch whatever I wanted. I was sitting there, flipping channels, when I heard something hit the back door. I remember jumping and getting up to see what it was, and seeing an older white guy in a beat-up green beanie, a brown jacket, and a red shirt staring in at me. He wriggled the back door, trying to get in, and I took off for the phone and called 911. I could not remember what the address was, but the operator knew and told me that she had a car coming out and to stay on the line with her. While I was talking to her, the guy had walked around the house and was standing in the front yard staring in with a really bugged-eye look. Freaked my 10-year-old ass out. He stood there a good 5 minutes before he took off running. Then 30 seconds later, a sheriff came pulling down. They asked me if he was still around, so I told them about what happened, and one of them radioed it in, while the other walked around looking. That was about the time my parents pulled in. The cops told them what was going on, and my parents took me inside while they looked around. My parents grilled me on what had happened, so I told them exactly what he had done. My father did not believe me, so when the cops came back and said that they had not seen anyone, he had no problem beating my ass. The guy actually ended up being a big part of the weird stuff that happened. He would peek in through the windows at night at my sisters, try and get in the back door or front door if he knew you were alone, would try and scare you by throwing shit against the walls. My sisters and I were the only ones to see him, until my grandma did one night when she was alone, said he tried to get in and told her stuff he was going to do with her. Every time we would call the cops, they would never find him, and the times we tried to go outside and get him, he would always get away somehow. We ended up becoming really good friends with the people that lived up the road. It was a family with 3 sons and 2 grandsons that lived with them. Whenever we would hang out, they would tell us weird stories about shit that happened around here. Hell, the first thing that Grandpa told us was to stay out of the woods at night and to get out of them before it got dark because the wood elves would get you. We never believed him until my little sister and I were walking back home one night, no moon, and there are no lights on the road. We start hearing twigs break and whispering, then start seeing little lights moving through the woods. We take off running for home, and they follow us until we cross the creek, then it stops. We never walked the road again at night, unless there was a lot of us and we had a lot of flashlights and knives. Back to the house. The basement was the creepiest part of it. The stairs had no rails. There were only 2 lights, and someone had put a shelf on the right of the stairs and killed all light from hitting the corner where the breaker was. Literally everyone who went in there got a bad feeling. The activity that happened down there would be low muttering, footsteps on the concrete floor, lights would blow, and if you were down there in the dark, stuff would brush against you. About 2 months in, the realty people finally put a real garage door on the basement, but it would still flood if it rained hard enough. Whenever it would do that, you could sometimes see something move through the water, and the one time our father saw it, he blamed water dripping from the ceiling. There is also a story my sister told me about the basement. One day, she was home alone. It was about the last year we lived there when she got the urge to go into the basement. She said once she was down there, the wall opened up and something stuck its head out, looked at her, grinned, then started crawling out. She took off running upstairs and waited outside until our parents got home, then had me go down once I got home to see if it was down there. I did not see anything, but it did feel weirder down there. There is a story from where me, the oldest sister, and one of her friends were hanging out in the basement. Her friend started shit-talking whatever was down there. Then both lights blew, and something laughed. We beelined it upstairs and stayed, and her friend went on to actually develop a really bad case of schizophrenia and shot herself about 4 years after it. Probably not connected, but still weird. There was a van that came down the driveway one day when my youngest sister and I were dicking around outside. I'd say I was about 13 and she was 9 or 10 years old. We were walking up the road when we heard a girl scream from the direction the van went. We took off running and hid in the woods to see what was going on. Saw the van rocking. The girl screamed again. I told my sister to run home and call the cops, so she did. I sat there for a little longer when the back door opened on the van and a guy looked out and around, then got out and walked to the driver door. Guy got in and left. I took off through the woods back home. Sis had called the cops, but they did not get there in time to stop him. We are pretty sure someone got kidnapped and assaulted, and we were too pussy to stop it. I really hope that is not the case. There was one year when it iced really bad and knocked the power out when we heard what sounded like a baby crying in the woods, and we would wake up to claw marks on the screen door. Another time, something killed 2 of our dogs, chewed them up really bad, and they were not small dogs. On the flip side of that, we had an immortal rooster. Wild dogs would get him and rip him up pretty badly. Then he would show up a few days later, perfectly fine. One of our dogs actually got a hold of him and bit his head almost completely off. We tossed him in the woods in front of our house, and 3 days later, he is back and pissed off. My sister also got adopted by the weirdest kitten I've ever seen. It walked right out of the woods up to her, sat down, and looked at her as if saying to pick her up. Damn thing was the color of fire, with jet black tips on its fur and the clearest blue eyes. The thing got really big, then just disappeared. But now that the little shit is out of the way, I can get to the fucked up stuff. There was some sort of demon in the main house that fucked my family up. We went from a somewhat normal family to me, a fucked up 28-year-old that has night terrors and needs therapy. Older sister, which turned out to be the most normal, but was still fucking a 30-year-old at 16. Second oldest, who cannot hold a job or a relationship, has 2 kids, and the fathers are shit. Then, my youngest sister, batshit crazy, PTSD, schizo, multiple personality. My mom passed away in 2011. My father is a cokehead now too. In his own words, keeps me faster than the demons. This thing looked weird, had a steer skull with blood that pulled out the eye holes, wore a black suit, and would appear at all times of the day. Whenever he showed up, something bad always happened. Once, he showed up, and 30 minutes later, 3 guys jumped my father and almost killed him. He ended up getting a steel plate put in the back of his head because of it. Another time, he showed up, and not even 5 minutes later, we got the call that our grandma had been killed. My sister told me that he showed up before she got assaulted, and the one story I'm able to get out of the oldest is that he showed up the night she was in a horrible car wreck that fucked her from having kids. He showed up to me one night when I was working third. Then I ended up getting robbed and beaten pretty badly. The one time it ever actually touched one of us, it was always my youngest sister, and it left a mark. That is around the time she really started having mental issues. When it first started showing up is when our father started doing cocaine and other shit again. He had done it in his younger years, but had stopped when I was born. He would come home, steal money, beat my mom and us, then go off for days at a time. Whenever he was gone, it never really showed up, but when it did, we knew he was about to come home. It seemed like the more he did it, and the more he hurt us, the clearer we would see it, and the more often. Our mom would see it, but she would pretend not to, and ignore us if we asked her about it. The last 2 years we were there were the most active times it would show up, and the last time we saw it was the day that we moved out. The moving truck stalled, and we barely got it going again. Someone almost hit us. I figured it was just from our imagination, but I ended up moving back into the place for a few months in 2010. I lived there about 4 months before I said fuck it and the lease and moved out. The guy was still there. Me and a few friends actually ran out and tried to catch him with guns, but nothing. There was now loud banging in the basement every night. I stopped going down there when I did the first few times to see nothing but for it to start back up once I was upstairs. I came home one day to see someone standing in the living room looking out my curtains, but no one was in the house. The night I woke up to my car alarm going off and finding bloody handprints on it was when I said fuck it and moved out. Now, as far as I know, no one lives there, and the place is in pretty bad shape. Something else happened that took place during a snowstorm that came up about 2 years into us living there. Our car could not get up the driveway, so my parents would have me bundle up and walk to the gas station about a half a mile up the road. They had me go out one night because we needed kerosene to keep our heaters going and toilet paper for obvious reasons. It was around 9:30 at night, so it was dark, but I started off up the road. When I got about halfway past where the crazy old guy, let's call him Dallas, lived, and he walked out and called over to me to be careful because there had apparently been an accident up the road. I did not pay any mind to it until I saw the car off in a ditch and a dead deer lying not too far from where the road was. It was apparent that the car had hit the deer and then skidded off the road, but by then, someone had already gotten whomever was in the car. I got to the gas station, filled up the kerosene jug, and grabbed a few packs of TP, then headed home. When I got down to where the car was, the deer was missing with a trail that looked like something had dragged it through the snow. I freaked a little and sped my pace up, made it home, and thought nothing of it. Later that night though, I would say it was about 2 in the morning, we woke up to something loud hitting the left side of the house nearest the living room. Our father walked out to see if maybe a tree had fallen and hit the side of the house, but apparently someone had decided to throw a severed deer head against the wall. It weirded us out, of course, and my parents called the police, who took forever to get out there. They, of course, did not find anything and told us to just be on guard. Every winter after that, something similar would happen, but not always a deer. Sometimes it would be a dead opossum, or raccoon, or a rabbit. We lived in a house for a couple of years when I was really young that had some weird shit going on in it. It was in the city, and it had the standard spacing between houses on either side, and I was probably 2 years old. My oldest brother is really in tune with spiritual stuff, and he felt evil energies flooding into the house when a friend of his started playing some kind of music. Pretty sure it was some kind of metal, because he was into a lot of that stuff, and nobody in our family particularly believes in metal being evil, but some of it is pretty dark. And over time, he felt something strange and looked out a window where some kind of pig-faced figure was staring in at him. Obviously, nothing was found relating to that outside of him seeing it. There was also weird porn and stuff seemingly hidden around the house, and my brothers would sometimes stumble upon it, but they weren't ever looking for it. It was always more of a subtle thought to look in some strange spot that normally nobody would ever pay attention to. I think there might be something else about that house that was off, but I do know that the neighbors we had all said everyone that lived there had some kind of problem while they were there. Also, my youngest sister and I talked earlier tonight, and she brought up the creepy stuff that would happen after midnight if we were still outside. I remember one instance clearly, and I will share it. For background, our bonfires were usually after us holding a get-together of friends and family and eating homemade chicken stew, and the adults getting drunk and going inside while leaving us kids outside to dick around in the fire. We would hold them in the backyard in the field until one year our father switched them to the front yard. In his words, to keep a better eye on you kids after we come inside. My father did not give two shits about us, so that caught me off guard at the time, but I never put two and two together. This particular instance happened in late November of 2004 as a late birthday party for me. As such, my best friend at the time was over. Two more of my friends, the oldest sister, had a friend over, and my other two sisters were the only kids there. It was after 12, and we were doing regular kid stuff when left alone with fire, setting the ends of branches on fire and twirling them around, making the fire bigger, telling stories and all that. Of course, my sisters and I told them about the wood owls and how something creepy lived in the woods, but they did not believe us. It was about that time we started hearing branches in the trees rustle like a squirrel was jumping from them, but there were a lot of them and moving fast. One of my friends had a flashlight with him, and he turned it on and shined it into the trees. There were dozens of little eyes reflecting back from the shadows, and he quickly turned it off. We all kind of looked at each other. Then a large branch flew out of the woods and landed not far from where my sisters were sitting. They screamed and took off, and we were quick to follow. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. Was in the USMC from 2003 to 2007. I was a communications guy. Did 3 deployments to Iraq in 05, 06, and 07. On my second deployment, we were stationed at Al Asad Air Base, about 90 miles away from Baghdad. Anyway, all over the airbase there were these giant bunkers, PIC related. We called them Yugas because they were built by the Yugoslavians in the early 80s/90s. This was a time when we were still friendly with Saddam Hussein. Most of the bunkers, about 80%, are abandoned and still filled with pre-war junk. None of them had lighting or plumbing. A few were cleared out though and retrofitted with water and electricity, then converted into makeshift offices because they have tons of different rooms and pathways. Our unit was stationed in one of these bunkers because they protected all of our valuable and scarce comm equipment from enemy mortar attacks, which were frequent at the time. Anyway, me and a buddy got bored at night, as was common, and we decided to investigate a nearby abandoned bunker. This was strictly against the rules because it was believed they could have been booby-trapped. Also, we had to sneak past the Ugandan guards to get to the bunkers. Ugandans were employed as base security, mostly at checkpoints and stuff, but not for actual combat. So, it's pitch black outside, and me and my buddy get a pair of bolt cutters. Take the long way around to avoid being spotted, threw a piece of wood over the concertina wire, crawled across, and came upon the entrance. We cut the lock, open the iron doors, and walk inside. We flip on our flashlights and start exploring. It's mostly chairs, desks, admin shit. We found a couple of empty AK-47 mags, some papers, and diagrams and charts in Arabic, etc., etc. We're about halfway through, moving room to room, and I shit you not, we heard a woman's voice say something in Arabic. We stood still for a few moments, looked at each other, and bolted back outside. I don't speak the language, but my friend knows conversational Arabic. He said the voice said, "Who is there? Who are you?" We never went back in because we are huge pussies, but we later learned that several women took their own lives in a bunker on base. Was never confirmed if it was the bunker we were in. Also, the Ugandans would occasionally report blue lights around the bunkers at night. This is unusual because we only use red lights at night so as not to fuck up our night vision. TLDR, ghost ladies in Iraq. Also, none of the pics are mine, just ones I pulled from online. The women who took their own lives were aides to the Iraqi officers. None of them took their own lives when the base was being taken over by coalition forces during the early stages of the Iraq War. Apparently, there was a bunch of Iraqi propaganda going around that coalition forces were not going to take any prisoners. Men shot on sight, women assaulted, then killed, etc., etc., so the women chose to take their own lives rather than that. That's about it, man. Like I said, we never went back in the bunker. I'm not gonna fuck around with ghosts. This happened to me in Korea. I was in the US Army. My unit was running a shooting range. Chilling, waiting by a gate on top of a small mountain. Make sure no idiots walk onto the live M249 range. S-Corps officer asked me to follow him. Drive over to back gate to guard. Chilling by back gate for a while. Realized I had been alone for over 2 hours. I noticed people walking through some trees to my left, just outside the back gate. Vague outlines of people through the trees. Figure it's local hikers. Notice they are not making noise. I get out of my truck to get a closer look. Still can't hear them. They move into the road about 50 feet away. They are wearing traditional Korean clothes. Almost shit bricks when they move through the trees. No fucking way. Still no noise. One moves right through the guardrails, clear as day. I'm frozen in place. I go back to my vehicle, and 20 minutes later, our range is closed down. I never told anyone about this. Military guy. Stationed in Montana. Don't want to go into more detail than that. We basically sit around all day at what is essentially an FOB and respond to cameras in remote fenced-in areas if they pick up movement. It is December, and it is Montana, so it is cold as fuck and totally snowed in where we are. Camera out of the sight is tripped. Usually, these turn out to be rabbits, or nothing at all. A camera is tripped. It is about 35 minutes driving time. Me and a guy we'll call Bob respond. Sun is down, and there are no lights out there. Wind is hardly blowing, but it's still cold as fuck. It is common for these locations that we go to be on or near civil land, usually farms. As we pull up, I can see cows about 1,000 yards away from the fence. Yeah, that was probably what tripped it. Get out anyway. Procedure it, so walk the fence, just to be safe. Bob stays in the Humvee. Hearing moos in the distance. Make the call that cows trip the alarm. Copy that. Come on home. Hear a sheep in the distance. The fuck? I don't know much about farms, but I've never seen one of these places keep cows and sheep together. Ba ba ba. All of the noises sounded exactly the same. Like, no change in pitch or anything, and it was one sheep. I keep walking back, but look around. Don't see shit. We drive about 10 minutes before we get a call to go back. Camera is tripped again. Cows nowhere in sight. This time Bob walks the fence. Can see Bob's flashlight walking the fence. Start hearing the sheep again. Same pitch sounds. Creepy as fuck. Don't see a sheep. We radio that there is a sheep doing it, but we can't see it. Copy that. Stand by. We later find out that the farmer had no sheep. They believe a cattle gate was left open, but when we pulled up, it was closed. Place was on little shell territory. I believe in all sorts of crazy shit, man. Part of me thinks that it was a fucking skinwalker. Not a security guard, but I'm a US Marine, so security is something we do a lot of. Stationed on Okinawa, mid-2017. On Kadena AFB, waiting for a flight to mainland Japan to do some more training. Flight window was supposed to be for 12 hours, but there was a storm offshore that ended up getting our flight delayed by like a day. There's a building that is kinda like an airport, but it closes after a certain time. Airmen are not happy that a bunch of dirty and soaking Marines are in their airport and tell us that we have to leave when they close. Closing time for the airport. Our chain of command sucked and didn't find an empty building for us, so we ended up sleeping in a grass field right outside of the airport. It's raining. Eventually, some officer, colonel or something, I don't remember, sees us sleeping on the grass and tells our command that we can sleep inside the base theater if we post 2 guards at a certain gate. Command agrees. I'm new to my unit at this time, so I have a shift at 0200 to 0300. Get woken up at 0145 by the guys on shift. Fuck my life. Me and one of my best friends, another lieutenant corporal, get up and walk to the gate. Gate is by the edge of the airfield and has one street lamp right above it. Me, my friend, and the guy that woke us up all walk up to the gate guard. Hey, what's up, man? Looks really pale. Hey, Lance Corporal Anon, what's good? The guard was a brand new guy and was never really nervous when our NCOs would fuck with him, so seeing him like this was kind of unnerving. Before either of us could ask what was wrong, the guy who woke us up asked, "Did you hear it again?" Yeah, man, it seems a lot closer than it did last time. Ask what the fuck was going on. I don't know, man. There's been a lot of rustling in the bushes around, and we kept hearing voices on our shift. Okinawa is a tropical island, so the entire place is a jungle. There's no trees by the airfield or the gate, but the grass is very thick and about 6 feet high. We've seen animals before during our training, like big cats and flying foxes, but usually they get scared of a human with a rifle and leave us alone, but that shit is still scary. The guard had been there alone while his buddy woke me and my friend up, so I assume that he had just kind of got skeeved out being alone. Anyways, the other guys tell us good luck and leave to go back to the theater. My friend and I kind of joke around about it, because seeing that guy nervous was really weird. We quickly get bored and shoot the shit about various porn stars we think are good. Dylan Harper is my favorite, even though her tits look connected, so we call her frog tits. While talking about her, we heard someone scurrying in the bush about 10 feet in front of us. We both go silent and expect to see something. We aim our rifles, we have no ammo, down the street and turn on our lights. We can see that about 5 feet off to the right of the road, the tall grass is shaking, like there is a tall figure moving through it. Normally, if it were a cat, the rustling would not be as vigorous at the top, so we figure it must be something kinda tall. My friend and I look at each other, then back towards the bush. "Hey, you fucking asshole, get out of those bushes and come here," my friend yells. It does not respond. A second later, it bolts off further into the woods and down the road. We think it's weird, but whatever. At 02:45, my friend decides to walk down to the theater and wake up the next guys to relieve us. I don't want to be alone, but I let him go so we can both go back to sleep. He leaves. I start getting pretty tired, and I can feel my head bobbing as I drift in and out of sleep. As I start to shut my eyes, I hear the rustling about 6 feet away from me. I'm ready to shit myself. I turn on my light and point it off the road to the right. There's something walking pretty fast out there, but the grass is too thick to see what it is. I can see the bushes moving towards the road. I'm starting to brace myself to see something. All of a sudden, I see the outline of a creature stick its head out and look at my direction. I train my light on it as it jumps forward onto the road. It's a fucking Marine in World War II combat gear. Pick related. His camis are caked in mud. His face is blackened, and he's holding an M1 carbine. I can't fucking believe what I'm looking at. There are holes in his uniform that look like he had been shot through, but there was not any blood. The guy looks my way, then crosses the road, and I can see the bushes start moving again. After a few minutes, I can start to hear footsteps behind me, but I'm too afraid to look. Hear my friend's voice, along with 2 other guys. Relieved that I'm leaving. Must have looked really nervous because my friend asked if I heard anything again. Nodded yes, and just left with my friend. Didn't say anything to him until after we left Okinawa, when he joked around that I looked so weird a few weeks later. This was the second time I had seen something that could Dina AFB, but definitely the worst one. I have not been to Okinawa since, and I'm out now. I think about that moment from time to time and wonder if I really did see that. It didn't seem angry or like it wanted to hurt me or anything. I eventually read up on ghost stories from the place, and there were quite a few articles talking about airmen who had seen other Marines in World War II attire around that gate as well.